Well done. So I'm sure you want to know more about deep listening and less about me um, rabbiting on. I'm not sure what I expected, as I've said probably a couple of times. I think I had an I had an idea, but there was a little bit of me that thought maybe there was going to be a secret technique that I would learn that would make me a better listener, because I kind of think I am a good listener, you know? Um, Particularly when it comes to listening to other people. And one of the biggest things I have come away with is that we all have the ability to be good listeners, or to listen deeply to someone. And there is no technique. Surprise. Because it's just an ability that we all already have. And we just forget it. We just forget that we have it, or yeah, I'm not sure what happens, but it's something that we all already have. It's something that we are. And I guess that's the biggest thing I've come away from this weekend, that it's not about learning some secret technique or anything. It's just about tapping into something that was already there. And during the weekend, I'll tell you a little bit about how it went. So we started off on the Saturday, the first day, with sat in a big horseshoe, and we shared. We introduced ourselves. You'll all be familiar with this, I'm sure. We introduced ourselves and we talked a little bit about what had brought us to the event, and how we'd got involved with the principles and what we were hoping to gain, and all those sorts of things. And that was the beginning of deep listening, really, because right from the moment we started, I was about halfway around the group. And as it got closer and closer and closer to my turn, I started to feel my heart beating a little bit faster and get a bit distracted and thinking, oh my God, listening to what other people were talking about. I was just sat there thinking, oh, they're so amazing, they're so inspiring, and why can't, oh God, what am I going to say? And all that stuff to do with comparing yourself with others. And fortunately, before it got to me, I can't remember how many people away, but I noticed that. And I noticed how distracted I was by all those thoughts. And even in that right in the beginning, I realized that the only person I was the only person I was listening to was me, which was fortunate that I noticed, because in that noticing, I kind of went, it's kind of a little hint about what's going on here. And something inside me just settled down a little bit. And I had another thought that came into my head, which was, if I'm thinking all of this comparing stuff, I bet everybody else is too. And that helped me too. And anyway, it got to me and I shared, and I can't remember what I said, but it was okay. And more than that, I really enjoyed listening to everybody else, which was a bit of a change from how I've been in the past in that situation, when I've kind of looked around the room and gone, oh my God, all these people are going to share. This is going to go on forever. And that kind of went. And what I noticed even in that first couple of hours was the feeling. And as everybody spoke, the feeling, actually, I'm sat here now and I'm getting goosebumps, because the feeling was incredible. And as everybody shared, I don't remember what they shared, but I remember the feeling of being connected with these people who I'd never met, by the way, in person. There were only a couple of people I'd kind of spoken to before. So anyway, that was what happened on the first day. And Jack spoke to us and Sheela spoke to us, and they said, this is part of what we're going to be talking about. Listening, deep listening, started here with these introductions. So it was a pretty big kickoff, really, for me anyway. And then I can't remember what happened exactly, except that we had a bit of a break, and then in fact we had the afternoon off and I went for a walk, and just the feeling just stayed with me. And it was like all these people I was going to spend the next few days with was suddenly like my family. We were like already connected and close, and it was just beautiful. Anyway, we continued the next day and the next couple of days just exploring this idea of deep listening and what it is and what it isn't. And there were some exercises that we did. We paired up a few times, and Jack set us some questions. One of the first questions was to think about a time when we'd not been listened to and how that felt. And then think of a time when we had been listened to and how that felt, and what was the difference. And it was obvious what the difference was, actually. I mean, the difference was like huge, because of the feeling. And and it just became so obvious that what deep listening was about, and that it was about dropping into a space that wasn't full of your own thoughts. And there was a really cool diagram, which I'm not going to share with you now, but it basically was a diagram that, for me anyway, showed that the only thing that stops us connecting, sorry, that's my computer bleeping, I thought I'd turn notifications off. The only thing that stops us deep listening is that we get distracted by our own thoughts. And those thoughts, you can almost put them in categories about, of where they fall into, but that doesn't really matter. The point is that we stop listening because we start following those thoughts. And the other person can feel that, because you're not present, and you're not curious, and you're not fascinated in what the other person has to say. And it's also not about hanging on that person's every word. It's connecting or listening to that feeling that's behind those words. And I guess deep listening is kind of, for me anyway, it's about a feeling. And it's the first time, I think, that I've had an understanding of what Sid Banks meant when he said, or talks about looking for the feeling, not listening to the words and looking for the feeling. And I've never really understood that. But I think I have a clearer picture of that now. Or a clearer, picture's not the right word, but it means something different to me. Anyway, I don't know how long I've been running, 18 minutes. I'm not going to go into what happened for the rest of the 3 days. But I'm going to tell you about something that happened to me over the 3 days. So we were talking about listening with somebody close to us, our partners, and we did an exercise with that. But also I shared something about Jim and I to do with when we have a phone call. And for example, if I'm away from home, as I am at the moment, I might ring Jim, my husband this is, for those of you that don't know, and I'll call him and he'll answer the phone, and then he'll talk and he'll tell me what's been going on, what the dogs are doing, where he's going, if he's, whatever's happened in his day, he'll go on and chatter and chatter and chatter. And then quite often he'll go, okay, thanks, hon, I'll talk to you later, and he'll hang up. And I'll be left thinking, I rang him. What? Jesus, he didn't even ask me how my day was or anything, I rang him and he's just kind of hung up on me and not interested. So I shared this in the group, and Jack, and we talked and we explored this idea. And because of the things we'd done in the group during the weekend and the things I'd seen and begun to understand, I suddenly saw something different about how during that phone call with Jim, yes, it was true that he did all the talking, but while he was talking, I wasn't listening. In fact, I was sitting there thinking, oh, for God's sake, I rang you. Don't you want to know what I've been doing? Oh God, don't tell me that. You've told me that already. Or are you going to listen to me? Are you going to shut up and listen to me? So I'd be having those kind of thoughts. Not necessarily exactly like that, but you know what I mean. And I wasn't listening to him. So I tried something. So after, I think it was last night, yesterday evening yesterday afternoon actually when we finished, I called Jim, and yes, he picked up and he chatted away and he told me about his day, and I had to say hello to the dogs and the grandkids and blah, 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 and all the rest of it. But every time I had a thought about, here we go again, I let it go like a bubble. I just let it go. And I listened. Another thought would come up, I'd let it go, and I listened. And I listened to what he was saying. And he eventually slowed down and ran out of things to say. And there was a moment of silence, but it was an okay moment of silence. And I still didn't say anything. And amazingly, instead of him going, okay, hon, I'll call you later, he said something along the lines of, so how was your day? What have you been up to? So then it was my turn, and I started telling him what I'd been up to and what we were doing, and that the course had run out and some of the people, had come to an end, and some of the people we'd met. And it really felt like he was listening. It was so different. And then, this is even more amazing, I then talked about coming back to Albir in November because there is an event here and there are some in fact, Rohini is coming. Amazingly, I'm going to meet Rohini. So I brought the subject of coming back here in November, and I suggested that he join me. And he started to say some things that I expected about not being able to afford it, and we can't really, who's going to look after the dogs and blah blah. And he started to go down that road, and I felt myself start to go, oh, here we go again. But I stopped, and I listened, and I let him say everything he wanted to say, and I just slowed down. And incredibly, because I didn't kind of brace against him, before long he started to talk himself into the idea of coming back to Spain in November and coming to the event. It was so weird. Anyway, so we ended up having this really connected, loving conversation about him coming back and him wanting to support me in what I was doing, and he'd actually be really interested in finding out more about what I was doing so he could support me better. I mean, it was a conversation. It was the sort of conversation. It was the sort of conversation we used to have years ago, in the beginning. And it was because I listened, and I didn't listen to the stuff that was going on in my head. I stayed present. I stayed curious. I didn't listen to the assumptions that I normally make about what I thought he was going to say, or what I thought he was thinking. I just gave him space to think it through and say what he wanted to say. And it was different, really. And I didn't know I was going to tell you about this on Facebook Live. And this is the weirdest conversation because I don't know if anyone's there. I guess there's a few people here, but that doesn't really matter. Anyway, I hope that my example of how this weekend has actually impacted me has made some sense. I'm still here in Spain. I've still got a few days. I'm hoping the sun will come out. But even if it doesn't, it's still shining. And actually, as I look out the window, the mountains are just appearing as it gets dark. But I'm really excited about this way of being, this way of just tapping into, what we are, tapping into what we're made of, tapping into this, when we let those thoughts go, when we let our minds quieten down, when we don't listen and believe everything we think, we can tap into something that we're part of, that we are made of, that is intelligent and just incredible. And there's more. I could talk longer, actually. I've just realized, because there's something else I noticed, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for another Facebook Live, maybe. But it's to do with not just listening to other people, but this ability to deep listen to yourself. Or not even to yourself, but for yourself, to be able to go quiet and ask yourself a question, maybe, and see what shows up. Tap into that stuff, the dots, we called it, which won't make any sense here, but maybe I'll share the diagram one day. Anyway, thank you for joining me. How long? I think we're just coming up to half an hour. Thank you, Joy and Gail. I love you so much. Thank you for joining me. And yeah, Joy, I'm going to come downstairs and have some dinner and give you the biggest hug. And yeah, thanks for the thumbs up too. Okay, 5 comments. Okay, guys, I hope this has been helpful. So I'm going to over and out. Ah, dear. From sunny, not Spain, Albir, and wishing you all lots of love, and hope to catch up with more of you very, very soon. Thank you again, those of you who've joined me. Bye for now. Oh my God.